Hello everyone, this is Yasir from Fairfax QA Center. Today we are going to learn about the testing tab of application lifecycle management tool. As a QA analyst and testing professional, this module is very important for you, so please pay full attention and understand the process and concepts. Let's start. I am in server virtual machine that has ALM installed. Click on ALM desktop client. We have username Chris, enter the password 123456. Click on Authenticate button, hit Login button. Click on Testing tab from left panel. Let us first create the test plan. Click on third option, Test Plan. If you go back to Requirement tab and in Requirements, you would see that we divided our requirements into functional and non-functional requirement. Similarly, for the test plan, it is a very good approach to divide the test plan into functional and non-functional test plans. So let's go back to test plan. Click on New Folder button and enter the new folder name as functional. Select subject, click new folder button, enter non-functional test plan, hit OK button. Similarly, we can divide our functional and non-functional test plans into automated and manual test plans. So select functional folder, click on new folder button, enter automated, hit OK button. Again select functional folder, click on new folder button, enter manual. Hit OK button. It would be better to create a new folder for each module of the application so that we don't need to dump all test cases in manual folder. Because for the complex application, the test cases can go more than 1000. That can be very difficult to manage otherwise. If you go back to our management tab and releases option, you will see for release 1 we have 3 modules: user registration, login module, and manage daily report. So let's go ahead and create a manual test plan for these 3 modules. So let's go back to test plan, select manual folder, click new folder button, enter the new folder name as user registration, hit OK button, select manual folder again, click new folder, enter the test folder name, login module, click on OK button, select manual folder again, click on new folder and enter test folder name as manage daily report, hit OK button. Now we successfully have created the test plan for the structure for our application client report. So let's go ahead and create a new test in login module. Click on new test button, enter the new test name, for example login test. You can also select the test type. By default is manual and we are also working in a manual test case, so keep the default option manual. If you want, you can also enter the option information, for example creation date. I can enter 2/1/2018. If you remember, our releases dates are in year 2018. You can also add the option description, for example test the login functionality of project. Click on spell checker. Okay, our spell check is complete. It's good. If you go to the second option, attach, You can attach any helping document in MS Word, MS Excel, PDF, or any image format. Click on Attach File button. Select file from your computer. For example, I do have one file, login test case.pdf on my desktop. Select that file. Click Open button. And this file has successfully been added to our new test. Hit OK button. The login test is successfully been created under login module, and on the right side you can see the description of this login test, like test name, the type, and who is the designer of this test case, and what is the test ID, that is auto-generated number. If you would see, there are some other tabs generated next to detailed tests, like design scope, parameter, test configuration, attachment, requirement coverage. So let's go ahead and understand the functionality and purpose of each tab. So let us first go to design steps. As you can understand from name design steps, you can list down all the steps of login test. Click on new step. You can enter the step name in this text box or keep the default name as step 1. In a description text area, you can add brief detail of login test case first step. For example, open IE browser and go to www.demo.clientreport.com website. Use spell checker. Okay, ignore this and we are good. The simple definition of expected result can be what should be the successful result of this action that we describe in our description text area. So we can say user should be able to launch the URL successfully. So this is the successful result of this action. Use the spell checker. Ignore this. Hit OK button. In attach option, you may attach any kind of document, for example MS Word, MS Excel, PDF, or any kind of image that may help to execute step 1. Go back to detail, hit OK button. So I created 4 steps for login test. The step 2 is enter the username, and the expected result is username should be entered successfully. Similarly, enter the password field, and the expected result is password field must be entered successfully. The step 4 is click on submit button. So username and password should be validated and user should be landed to home page. The next step is parameter. The parameters are actually the data of test case. For example, let's go back to design steps. In step 2 and step 3, we are entering the username and password. So in parameter tab, we can add the default value of username and password. Click on new parameter button. Enter the parameter name. For example, username. Default value can be FSQA. Hit OK button. Create another parameter. Parameter name would be password, and the default value can be 1 2 3 4 5 6. Hit OK button. So we successfully have created the username and password parameters. It's time to embed these parameters into test steps. So let's go back to design steps tab. Let's add the username parameter into step 2. Right click on step 2. Select edit step. Click on insert button. And here you will have the list of all parameters. Right now we have only 2 parameters, username and password. Select username. Hit OK button. And you will see that username has been appended to description text. Hit OK button. To embed the password into step 3, right click on step 3. Select edit step. Click on insert button and select the password. Hit OK button. and the password has been added to description text. Hit OK button, and you will see the parameters are added to test tabs like this. The next tab is test configuration. Let's go to test configuration and try to understand it. Test configuration helps us to reuse the test case for a different use case scenario. For example, this login functionality can be performed by the different roles like manager, VP, or help desk. So we can create the test configuration for each role. Let's go and create a new test configuration. Click on new test configuration button. Enter the new test configuration name, for example manager. You can also enter information in optional field and also can attach any file. Enter the option description, use the spell checker, we're good. Hit OK button. Let's rename the login test to help test and create one more test configuration for VP. Hit OK button. Next tab is attachment. If you remember, while creating this login test, I attached this login test PDF document. You can attach as many helping documents as you want in MS Word format, MS Excel format, picture, or PDF. Next to attachment, there is a requirement coverage tab. Requirement coverage helps testers to map tests against particular requirement. That helps to generate coverage and traceability. Now this is more technical definition. In normal word, requirement coverage creates links between test cases and requirement and make sure either all requirement has corresponding test cases and no requirement is left without any test case. Click on select button. On the right side, you will see the requirements are listed on. Expand requirement folder. In function requirement, we have client requirement, that is login. Select that requirement. Click on small arrow button. Select against all test configurations. Hit OK button. Now we successfully map client requirement login to login test case. The next step is link defect. Link defect is empty now because we haven't executed any test or raised any defect against login test case. So this tab will be populated once we post any defect using defect tab. The last tab we will discuss is the history tab. History tab shows all the changes made to login test case from the time it was created to the current time. Now we successfully have created our test case, login test, defined its steps and also the parameter. It's time to execute that test case. For this, we will have to go to test lab. Click on test lab from the left side menu. The first step in test lab is to create the test sets. Test sets, as the name represents, is a collection of test cases that we intended to execute. Before creating the test set, it's better to create the root folder that will hold these all test sets. Click on New Folder button. You can enter the name of this test set folder as the combination of release and cycle so that it would be easy to track down in the future. So enter the test set folder name as 2018 R1 cycle 1. Hit OK button. Our test set folder has successfully been created, as you can see here. On the right side, you can select the cycle, expand releases folder, select 2018, select R1, and you can see that we have two cycles for release 1. Select cycle 1, hit OK button. It means that this entire test set should be executed for cycle 1. Now let's go ahead and create a new test set. Click on New Test Set button. Enter the name of new test set, for example login. You can also add information in option field and attach any kind of helping document. Hit OK button. I hope you are following me so far. In the start, I described the test set as a collection of different test cases. So now we have successfully created the test set login. It's time to add a test cases in this test set. So let's go ahead and add test cases in login test set. Click on select test button, and on the right side you will see that there is a test plan and requirement tab. Test plan is a previous option where we actually created these test cases for our login module. Expand subject folder, and if you remember, we divided our test cases into two folders, functional and non-functional. Expand functional folder, and the function folder is further divided into automate and manual. Expand manual folder, and we divided our test cases according to module. So expand login module. The login module has two test cases: the login test that we created during this demo video and invalid email test case that I created offline. Select test case, click on small arrow button, add test to test set. If you remember, we created three configurations for our test case: one for helpdesk, one for manager, and one for VP. Hit close button, and you would see that our test case with these all three configurations has successfully been added to our test set. You can add more test cases in this test set. Let's select the login test. Click on arrow button. Click close. Similarly, let's go ahead and create new test set. Enter the new test set name as Manage Daily Report. That is actually the name of our second module. Hit OK button. Expand Manage Daily Report test cases. Select both test cases and hit arrow button. And the test cases has successfully been added to our Manage Daily Report test set. I also created the user registration test set and added these two test cases in it. The next important tab is Execution tab. Execution tab shows the order in which test displays during the execution. We can go back to login module, and this is the execution order of different test cases. So far, we successfully have created our test cases and added them into our test sets. So now the most interesting part has come to execute these test cases. If you see on the top, we have two buttons, Run Test and Run Test Sets. The difference between these two buttons is, in Run Test Set, you can execute all the test cases within the test set, whereas in Run Test, you can individually execute the test case. So let's go ahead and execute a single test case. Select the test case and then click on Run Test button. I resized the manual test set runner window to display it properly. So before moving further, let's understand the function of these all buttons. The begin button starts the execution of test set. The end button as you terminate the execution of test set and close this window. The cancel button only cancels the execution of current test case in a test set. The attachment button, you can attach any kind of helping information or screenshot. The new defect button will open a new defect window where you actually can log the defect that may arrive during the execution of this test set. The OS button will show you the information of operating system where this test case is being executed. So let's go ahead and click on begin button. If you remember, we also provided the parameter to our login test. Hit OK button. So these are the 4 steps for our login test that we defined earlier. The first button, add. You can add step during the execution. You can delete step during execution. You can make it pass. You can make it fail. You can also see the parameters. You can allow user to take the screenshot or any attachment. You can log the defect. You can see the compact view, or you can end the execution. Since this is the manual testing, so you have to perform these all steps manually. Perform the action that is described in your description text box. For example, open IE browser and launch this website. Check the expected result. If your actual result is equal to expected result, set the status as passed, otherwise failed. And write down the actual result here. Use the spell checker. Similarly, perform the step 2 and record the status. For example, I'd say the step 3 got failed. And you should write the actual result here. Close this window. Hit yes button. Similarly, you can go ahead and execute the entire test set. Select Manage Daily Report Test Set. Click on Run Test Sets. It is asking us either we want to do the manual runner or automatic runner. Since we are only executing the manual test, keep the default option manual runner. Hit OK button. Click on Begin button. Just for an example, I only added one step in this test case. You have to perform this section manually. Check the actual result with the expected result and set the status accordingly. For example, I say that this test has been passed successfully. Select the status passed. Once you are done with all steps of the test case, you can click on End Run button to move to the next test case in the test set. Click on End Run button. This is the second test case in the test set. Click on Begin button. Perform this action manually. Check the actual result with the expected result and set the step 1 status. For example, failed. Click on End Run button. So this is the very important video where we learned how we can create the test cases, then defining the steps of the test cases, adding the parameter, then adding these test cases in the test set. After that, how we can execute the test case individually versus entire test set. You can also go to the test run option where you can see the information about the test cases. For example, the status, who executed that test case, when it was executed, and you can also send the complete report via email.